Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres, and before I get to today's video, I kind of had one amusing little thing I wanted to point out here. And, well, I was looking at the space camouflage for the Shimakaze, and I kind of had to do a little bit of a double take, and I noticed that on the center tower behind the first smoked stack, there are some very nice 1940s era AA guns. So I don't know if somebody on the development team or design team goofed or missed something, but yeah, they've got some nice 1940s era anti-air guns on the supposedly highly futuristic space camouflage for the Shimakaze. So, I don't know if it's something that they left as a little bit of a gag or whatever, but they're there. So anyway, on that note, I did want to just kind of go over the recent instance of the Escort mode for the Red Comet event in World of Warplanes. And I do have to say that as opposed to the previous match during the Blade of Vengeance, this one was a lot better developed, I guess I could say. There were a number of changes that were made specifically to the survivability of the attacking bomber groups, which definitely made life a lot easier from the perspective of the attackers versus the defenders. It seemed to make the overall battle plan a lot more balanced in that regard. The bombers were more survivable. They had a better chance of actually reaching the actual target, as long as the attacking team actually went out of their way to provide proper escort and at least just deal damage to the anti-air strongholds between them and the actual map border where they would pass on to the target. So it was a very, very dramatic improvement, and it actually made the escorting team feel like their efforts were worth something. Not only that, when it was very much worth something, because as long as they could provide at least reasonably proper escort, and as long as the attack aircraft could knock out the strongholds, the enemy aircraft were not always capable of completely destroying the strategic bomber wings. And that made a world of difference. Whereas during the Blade of Vengeance version of the strategic bomber escorts, if you ended up on the attacking team, you were basically almost handed a guaranteed loss. I think there were only 2 or 3 matches that I actually won over the entire duration of that entire setup as an attacker during the bomber escort mission for Blade of Vengeance. So, by comparison, the first battle that I got into for the Red Comet version, with all of the rebalanced bombers and everything, my first battle as an attacking aircraft in a bomber, and this is the match that you're watching in the background here, was a flat-out win. Hands down. I mean, granted, it was a little bit hit and miss at first, but, I mean, overall, this match actually ends up being a win. And I completely attribute that to the balance changes that were made specifically to the strategic attack bombers. And it definitely showed through. Granted, there were still several matches that were lost over the course of the event as an attacker, and I will definitely applaud the defending teams who succeeded at defending against strategic attacks very, very distinctly, or directly. Because it meant that they did put forward a very effective defense. But they had to work for it a lot harder than they had to in the previous run, which is why I definitely applaud them for their efforts. Whereas it did not take a almost miracle of God for the attacking team to actually win a match. It wasn't a guaranteed victory for the attacking team, mind you, but it was still something that it made the attackers feel like they were actually capable of influencing the match. And that is one of the huge turnarounds for this entire stage of the event. Now, unfortunately, this was almost 4 or 5 days ago that this ended, but the simple fact remains that it was substantially better balanced relative to the way it was during the Blade of Vengeance run. And I really, really liked how it ended up coming out as a whole. Something else that I think they may have changed, but I could be wrong, it certainly was not in any of their adjustment notes, but I think they actually made the strongholds a little bit easier for attacking bombers to actually crack and eliminate, because if I'm not mistaken, that was actually one of the other things that made the Blade of Vengeance so difficult to get through, was you could have a entire party of attack planes just trying to take out a stronghold, and eventually one of the strongholds would fall, but it would take an inordinate amount of effort to eliminate the AA threat to the strategic bombers as a whole. And it really just gave the sense that the entire event was kind of geared against the attacking team. So any and all changes in that regard were definitely very, very positive, and made the iteration during the Red Comet version, as opposed to the Blade of Vengeance, feel much more comfortable overall. Now, I will at this point kind of step away to the side a little bit and say that I do apologize if this match is not the most exciting in the world. For the most part, any bomber match really isn't going to be terribly exciting as far as World of Warplanes goes in the first place anyway, just because you're really not able to get into the combat so much, and you basically just kind of spend the majority of the match flying around in circles trying to bomb targets from high altitude. That having been said, the one downside about the replays for World of Warplanes is that you're not seeing a lot of what I'm actually doing in reticle view. The only thing that it's actually going to show you is what the plane is doing, instead of all the bouncing back and forth between bomber reticle, turret, etc. and so forth. It's just going to show what the plane is doing, and unfortunately the only way that I could even capture any of my actual actions would be to have actually been recording this match as it was taking place, when I had no idea this match was even going to be as good as it was. As far as the excitement factor, the other thing that's really kind of going to take away from it a little bit is the simple fact that I was working very closely with my altitude, trying to make sure that I was basically safe from the Stronghold's AA batteries, and I actually managed to find a sweet spot. For the Ju-88A at Tier 5, that sweet spot was over 10,500 feet. And as you can see by my little score and marker here, I'm actually just a little over 11,000 feet, and the AA batteries are not even giving me the time of day. I'm too far above the enemy aircraft for them to really spot me effectively, and I'm just dancing back and forth trying to hit targets as they as I can. The downside is with the Ju-88A, it drops its bombs in groups of 4, and at higher altitudes they really kind of tend to scatter quite a bit. So I was actually also rather pleased to get some at least moderately reasonable dispersion on my bombs on some of the targets that I was actually dropping on from the altitude that I'm at. Overall, it was definitely not a bad run, to say the least. In fact, I'm going to, I'm already at like 14,800 points, almost twice that of my nearest competitor on my own team, as far as just overall score. And we still have the final leg of the match to actually get through, too. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I'm not doing too bad. And in my position, I'm not even threatened by anything, because, again, the enemy aircraft are so far below me that they can't even really see me to spot me to decide to come after me. And even then, at 11,000 feet, the only aircraft that are really capable of coming after me in the first place are either other bombers, and I do know some of the Russian bombers for the new Russian tech line do have forward-mounted cannons, but the only other thing that can really come after me are heavy fighters, and in order for them to come after me, they either have to gain substantial amount of altitude and keep their speed up, or they have to literally already be at altitude waiting for me, instead of trying to focus on shooting down the strategic bombers, which, at least in this match, it seems like the enemy team, the defending team, really just decided to ignore the bombers on my team completely. I mean, my friendly off to the distance in front of me there is also basically safe because nobody's given him the time of day either. But he is flying a decent bit lower than I am and is drawing attention of the AA batteries on the ground. So, but overall, there's really nothing to indicate to anybody that we're even here aside from the occasional flak bursts going after my friendly. So it's, I mean, overall, again, for lack of a better term, from a spectator standpoint, it is a very boring match. If I were doing this match in a fighter or even an attack aircraft, I think, it would be far more visually appealing because there's a lot more going on. I mean, even an attack aircraft at ground level is still at least having to engage directly instead of just kind of indirectly dropping bombs from high altitude and safety, basically. But at the same time, I also have to throw out, again, the fact that the replays are really just kind of bland for World of Warplanes in regards to showing what is actually going on from my point of view over the course of the match. Part of where I'm going in trying to explain all of this with the Bomber Reticle and the World of Warplanes replays is that I suppose if I'm going to try and portray bombers properly in World of Warplanes moving forwards, what I'm probably going to end up having to do is if I pull out a bomber, I just have to open up my recording software and actually just record my matches as I run through in the bombers, because otherwise I'm just not going to get an accurate portrayal of everything that I'm doing or seeing without doing so. I obviously will not have to worry about that with, say, the attack planes or any of the other aircraft classes through the game overall, but for bombers, yeah, that's going to end up being something that I have to do if I really, again, just want to showcase them properly. Now, at the last stage of this battle, I mean, there's nothing left for me to do. I already know that there's not going to be any more ground attacks that I'm going to be able to carry out, so I just kind of decided I would drop down into the middle of the enemy formation and basically just kind of scatter all of them as they try to figure out where this big plane came from that's just randomly diving in on them. And they're trying to figure out, am I a heavy fighter? Am I something? But no, guess what? It's a big-ass bomber that just decided to drop in on your head. So, I suppose in some ways that probably inspired a little bit of panic on the part of the enemy team as they try to figure out where I came from in the first place. But overall, just an amusing little end to the match, if nothing else. At least if I had been in, say, a couple of my other bombers where they have forward-mounted turrets, I probably would have done at least a little bit of damage, but overall, it was definitely worth just kind of seeing everybody panic and scatter. So, as you can see, I do have a pretty nice long string of badges, achievements, and medals here. And I'm actually going to go into the post-battle results screen for a change to go over all of them because there were just way too many to actually go over as far as the replay. Almost 19,000 experience points earned for the aircraft, almost 1,000 free EXP. I also earned 4 special tokens and almost 132,000 credits in a regular Techline aircraft, might I add, as a bomber. So very, very good, strong, solid results. I earned the Expert Pilot Badge, the Top Pilot Badge, Swooper Badge, the Effective Fire Badge, the Red Comet Badge Stage 2, the Subjugator Badge, and the Hail of Steel Badge. For the actual aircraft-specific missions, I was shy of the top grade, but I was very close. First on the team, I earned the Conqueror Medal, the Thunder Medal, Lang Medal, Winged Legend Medal, and the Doolittle Medal. So very, very distinctive medals here in regards to just my overall performance as a bomber for the course of the match. Very, very... Again, looking at how these are filled up here, there's very, very close to the just completely fulfilling the aircraft-specific missions for actual achievement overall. Pilots, gunner, they earned some very solid EXP as well. And at this point in time, I was also working on the missions for the Russian Tu-10 bomber. So very, very solid mission earnings as a whole. Lots and lots of damaged ground targets. I even managed to actually destroy 18 in a single run. I was one ground target section shy of getting my grade 1 for the specific missions. I mean, just lots and lots that I was just a little bit shy on. 22,215 personal points earned. Almost twice that of the nearest contender on my own team in regards to just overall points earnings. He had 15,790. Unfortunately, 2 enemies did exceed my score. They were both fighters, one heavy, one light fighter. But unfortunately, I guess that was not enough for them to come out on top overall for the match. I do offer my condolences for their loss, but unfortunately, I guess the rest of their team just really wasn't able to pull together to help ensure their victory. Anyway, on that note, I shall go ahead and let you all go. Again, just pointing out the little mishap on the Shimakaze's space camouflage. On that note, I hope I will catch you all again later. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you have enjoyed what you have seen here, and I shall catch you all again next time around. Have a good one, folks. Happy hunting. Take care out there.